Major General Harold Green, he went by Harry, was Deputy Chief of the Training and Assistance Command, the organization in charge of training and equipping the Afghan army. It is the linchpin of the American strategy to pull its combat troops out of Afghanistan by the end of this year and turn the fighting over to the Afghans. Green was one of several U.S. and allied officers inspecting the Afghan military academy. The delegation was mowed down when the alleged shooter opened fire with a machine gun from the window of a nearby building. Before troops assigned to guard the visitors could return fire, Green had been killed and 8 other U.S. soldiers wounded, 4 of them seriously.
We are once again faced with a reality. America is the country that, despite assertions and demands from many of our citizens, we are called upon to settle more than our fair share of international disputes. We have also placed ourselves over the decades smack dab in the middle of conflicts that perhaps we should have walked away from. But the demands of a global society and the intertwined issues of economics, terrorism, and arrogance by others often mean we have no choice. Americans want to be out of places like Afghanistan, and no matter how hard we seem to try, the tragedy of just still being there comes home all too often. And Afghanistan is just one spot on the map. Let's welcome back into MidPoint, as she remains with us from our last segment, former Marine Gunnery Sergeant, Senior Military Advisor for Concerned Veterans for America, Jessie Jane Duff. And we're now joined by non-resident fellow at the Beirut Center for Middle East Studies, Dr. Geoffrey Cook. Dr. Cook, thank you so much for joining us. Jessie Jane, good to see you again. All right, Dr. Cook, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Should we still be in Afghanistan? Are we really doing anything of good while we're there?
I think the plan that the administration would like to do, I don't know how far they are, is to leave a small contingent for both training and to be on ready to help the Afghan army if it is necessary. This was the plan in Iraq, which was denied to them, and with ISIS coming, there's not much we can do about it. So it would be good to have a small contingent of Americans in Afghanistan. I don't know at what point it is on the agreement. And with what happened in Iraq, I think there will be a small contingent that can be reinforced quickly to be prepared to help the Afghan army. So
but are we doing the right thing in Afghanistan? Are we doing the necessary thing to be there? When you look at the future of countries such as these, they always seem to descend into chaos in a very short time, even though we're there.
I think we are doing the right thing. We just cannot be in wars all the time. The doctrine of eternal war does not work. We have to bolster up the governments. We have to protect the government in Iraq. We have a problem of we can't do much. We can do something with air power, and we have to depend, of all things, on the Iranians, which would involve a rapprochement, and the Turks, which are regional powers. How are we going to do that? I don't know. Or if we can do that, because of the politics in the United States.
Jessie Jane, let me turn to you now when it comes down to what the doctor just said is the doctrine of eternal war. How tired are the American soldiers right now? Because we consistently are talking about this in a foreign policy case, yet we don't talk about the men and the women on the ground who've just got to be, they want to protect this country. They want to do the right thing. They want to serve. But they've got to be getting to the point right now where they're saying, what in God's name are we still doing in this country, and why are we still going to war in places we shouldn't be?
Okay, so let's kind of take a step back for a second, though. We have to remember that Osama bin Laden created al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, okay? Now we have the Taliban presence there. If we just say, okay, we're done, let's leave, it doesn't make it over, because the terrorists will go back, the extremists will go back, and it will fill the vacuum that brought us there in the first place. This will be the second time in history that I know of that we have failed to complete our mission. Everybody who ever saw Harry's War, in which we did not sustain Afghanistan after the Russians Russians had pulled out, and we allowed that environment to get created where the Taliban was able to take stronghold. That's going to happen again. If you don't pay attention to your history, it is doomed to repeat itself. So to your question, are we getting tired? We're tired of not getting the support we need. We're tired of not being sustained. We're tired of our majors getting pink slips while on the battlefield out there. That's like in the middle of this show, somebody walks in and says, your job is done at the end of this, and I know I'm never coming back. What kind of performance am I going to do? If we're going to do something, you do it right. And at that, then you know your mission is accomplished. Right now, I've got brothers and sisters that are buried in Arlington Cemetery. I have friends without legs, without arms, because of Afghanistan and because of Iraq. And if the American people out there are feeling so frustrated, what they need to do is ask them, do you want to see this done right, or do you just want us to be done? Let's finish this on the right level. 30,000 troops are in there right now. By 2014, we expect 2/3 of them to be gone. Taliban's fully aware of this. And the president has made the statement that he expects all of our troops to be gone by the end of his presidency. Well, guess what? You're just basically saying, yes, our work was in vain. Just why don't we pull out, let the Taliban go back, and then we're going to see another 9/11 on another level, on another scale.
Okay, let me stop you there.
People hate us.
Let me stop you there. Let me go to Dr. Cook. We talked about 9/11. Now let me make another thought here as well. Dr. Cook, if we do not finish the job here, or if we don't finish it correctly, are we looking at creating simply another Iraq?
I want to say two things. I agree with the person on your show,
Jessie Jane. Yep.
In the military, I always respect military people because they have to pay the consequences. But what was our objective in Afghanistan? Number one, we were attacked. It's a legal war. We had a right to attack them. It was a non-state actor called Al-Qaeda, not the Taliban. We have pretty much neutralized Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. We did it. The problem is the enemy really wasn't the Taliban. I do not want to see the Taliban come to power again, period. They're pretty bad people. But we did accomplish a mission. The problem now becomes containment. A point I would also like to make is who's going to fill the vacuum. I was in a meeting with a State Department official and an ambassador from India, and the State Department official who is in charge of American policy in South Asia talked to the ambassador and said, are you guys thinking of helping us? Which would be a grave mistake. On the other hand, the Iranians are going to be taking, whether we like it or not, are going to be taking up a lot of the slack. On top of this is the Pakistanis who see Afghanistan is in their sphere of influence. They do not want to see the Indians there. And half of 15% of Pakistan is Pashtun. The majority of the people in Afghanistan is Pashtun. And we can think of this as a Pashtun war.
Well, Dr. Cook, if I might, you're putting a lot of players onto the chessboard here, and you're talking about Iranians and Pakistanis here, which might even be to my point, about a minute that I have left here or so. Wouldn't you say, though, that we are still, no matter what we do at this point, this is still going to be a land that is going to be opened up to other forces and other types of people who are simply going to move in and take control no matter what we do?
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. The problem is can we work with these people? Can we let them do this? Iran is a problem. I don't see any reason why we can't make rapprochement, but many people in this country do not.
But you're saying it wouldn't be a bad thing if we allowed the Iranians and the Pakistanis to then take control or influence Afghanistan?
They're not going to take control. They're going to influence Afghanistan. Yeah, they're going. But there's no way around that. There's problems in Pakistan. India wants Iranian oil. and it has to go through either Afghanistan or Pakistan. So there's a lot of issues coming up here.
I will say it will catch a lot of people off guard by saying perhaps the Iranians and the Pakistanis will be basically having some influence in Afghanistan, even if we're gone. Jessie Jane, I have about 30 seconds left. You want to react to that?
Yeah, that's very unfortunate that he has that attitude, because the Taliban's presence is threatening our security over there now. Yes, we did push al-Qaeda out, but they have infiltrated, they expect 25% of those Afghanistan's army. And we will be right back in there if that vacuum is filled, regardless of who the outsiders are. Extremists are extremists, and we cannot afford to have that risk. And let's not have our blood and treasure in their sand as a result of everything becoming in vain. That's really would be a disappointment and a tragedy for the American people.
Dr. Geoffrey Cook, unfortunately, we're all out of time, but I'll tell you, you've opened up an interesting can here, which I think we're going to have to talk about down the road. We appreciate your time and your comments. Jessie Jane Duff, as always, it's a pleasure. We thank you as well.
Thank you, Ed, for inviting me.
All right, thank you, everybody. Later on this hour, Around the Dial with Dallas talker Mark Davis at ground level in the border conflict along the southern part of the United States. And after the break, your ticket to the mystical place known as Outland. Oh yeah, you know the kind of people that are in Outland. We'll introduce you to a few right here on MidPoint.